Welcome to Pages from the Dark Side, the monthly book club podcast with a specialization in spooky. I am your host, Dylan Ludwig, aka Mr. Hyperware. And with me, as always, is my lovely wife and co-host,
Alyssa Ludwig, also known as the Earbud Bookworm.
And today, we are here to talk about Dead Silence. No, not the James Wan puppet movie from 2007, or Ghost Ventriloquist movie, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
This is Dead Silence from S.A. Barnes, which is the pen name for an author named Stacy Keed. I believe she has this for her kind of sci-fi horror realm, because before this she was doing like YA, fantasy romance kind of stuff. So this is our first venture into science fiction on this. And so this will be interesting because we have a bit... Early on in our relationship, we did have a little bit of a, I wouldn't say a conflict, but it was definitely like we didn't really quite know this about each other.
Right, we realized we have a bit of a divide.
You're not as big into science fiction as I am.
I'm not, no. I prefer like science fantasy.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do sci-fi type stuff.
Star Wars.
Yeah, I like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like the really hardcore, strict sci-fi, I have a little trouble getting into.
Yeah, like, cyberpunk or...
Yeah.
Kind of like more hard science fiction, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There have been a couple of exceptions, though.
Yeah,
I feel like.
definitely.
I know you like the Planet of the Apes movies.
Is that considered sci-fi?
It's hard sci-fi.
Oh, I guess.
There's time travel, there's genetic engineering involved.
See, that's the thing. That's where it gets sticky, though, because I like time travel stuff.
Yeah. You like Back to the Future.
I do.
Yeah.
And my favorite show is Dark.
That's true, which is if you've seen Dark, you know.
So anyway.
But space sci-fi, like stuff like Alien or Event Horizon, which this pulls heavily from.
Yes, very.
Like, that seems like also kind of in your wheelhouse a little
bit.
bit
I definitely seem to prefer like the space type stuff.
Yeah.
I really was really into aliens when I was a kid too, so that's a whole different factor.
Well, we were both big X-Files fans back in the day.
Well, I actually wasn't an X-Files fan until I was an adult.
Oh, really?
I wanted to watch it when I was a kid, but I wasn't allowed. But I liked like Twilight Zone and all that. And,
yeah. Did you ever watch like Outer Limits?
No, actually, I've never seen that ever in my life.
Oh, that would have been up your alley.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, I was big into X-Files when I was young. I was always scared to watch it because the theme song always creeped me out. And like the actual visuals in the opening always freaked me out.
I mean, that's valid.
But I mean, it's also it's a show that changed television.
Oh, so yeah, absolutely.
To be at the ground floor of that was something special.
Yeah.
And I saw one of the movies in the theater, not the good one. But yeah, I've been very into space sci-fi for a long time. Star Wars I got my start with there, obviously. It's astounding how many young kids that I've met who have never seen Star Wars in their life.
Well, I that's another one. I didn't see Star Wars until I was well into my adulthood.
Yeah, that
I was in my 20s.
Yeah,
before I saw that.
Because that was just one of those where, like, culturally growing up, it's like you just kind of know.
Well, I mean, I knew all about it. I had just never seen it.
Yeah. Now, Alien came a little bit later. That's when I was like 10 or 11, like that kind of wheelhouse.
Didn't see it till I was an adult.
Yeah, I think with me, it was like the first time you saw that. But Event Horizon, we had seen separately.
Yes. No, I saw that as a teenager.
Which this is...
At a sleepover, of all things.
Yeah.
It was a sleepover birthday party.
Yeah, you're watching that, and then, like, how do you explain to the parents of that sleepover, oh, yeah, there's, like, just some fucked up blood orgy that happens for, like, a split second.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, this book hit my radar, because, like, it was one of those, like, on a recommended, like, look out for these books later this year kind of thing. And this just already was, like, up my alley, because I just had to kind of, accept that the kind of literature that I like is not necessarily the stuff that is, like, super challenging. Like, I can understand, like, things that they would teach you in, like, AP English or something like that.
Yeah.
Like William Burroughs or Faulkner or Mark Twain I still kind of struggle with a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, Walt Whitman I kind of struggle with too. But,
interesting.
Yeah. Poetry's not my jam.
Oh. I like Walt Whitman.
What?
I like Walt Whitman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read Leaves of Grass and I'm like, I don't really quite get this.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I do.
Like I say, poetry's hard for me.
Poetry is hard.
I'm
not going to lie.
I should retract Mark Twain because I did read Grapes of Wrath and I understand that perfectly fine.
Wait, is that Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Is it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's Steinbeck.
I was like, that's not
My
Mark
bad.
Twain.
My bad.
You're the English major.
You can take away my credentials here. But when this hit me, I was just like, I just have to accept that I'm really into like pulpier type of stuff.
No, me too. And I think that's something that I have realized as I'm reading more. Because I, for a long time, didn't read. I read a lot as a kid. Didn't read much as a teenager in like my early 20s and even, honestly, up until my mid 30s. It wasn't until shortly before we had our oldest, I think, that I started reading more. Mm-hmm. Again, and now I read like a lot. And now that I'm reading a lot, it's like I'm realizing that a lot of the things I like to read are like the suburban thrillers and stuff like that. So
I go even trashier than that. Like behind you is a copy of Paperbacks from Hell.
Yeah.
And I kind of have used that as my, when I read that, I felt very like kind of at home. I'm like, oh, because I read like stuff like Night of the Crabs or or The Rats or like just or like. Even crazier shit like Flowers in the Attic.
Oh, yeah. I've never read that. I've read the synopsis, and that's enough for me.
It's so fucked up.
That's enough for me.
So this doesn't quite go as...
Anyway.
This doesn't quite go as hard as that.
Right.
But it's definitely in the, like, easy to digest, a very simple premise of a crew that comes across this ghost signal for this ship that has long since abandoned, and then they get there... And it turns out some really fucked up stuff happened on that ship.
Right.
And there's possibly something supernatural inhabiting it.
Yes. And that's about all the synopsis you can give without going into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
So we'll stop there.
So the characters involved, we have Claire Kovalik. Who I recall, we tried to record this initially and I fucked up the last name. So,
you did. It's fine. Well, it was actually me, I think, because we were both trying to remember it. I'm the one that came up with it, and it was so close.
Yeah.
They were both like, oh, yeah, that's totally it.
And she's very much, she's a character. When we meet her, it's clear she's riddled with some kind of PTSD that we don't find out the cause of until later in the book.
Right.
But she's captaining this ship. She's kind of like this, wayward captain where not everybody's like really on board with her leading them because they know that she struggles with it, but something just fell in the background. And
I was just looking at the fact that you have someone in a cup over here.
Oh yes, Stephen King kept falling, so I put him in the cup.
Put him in a cup.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want Stephen King in a cup? He's right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
That's
ahead.
okay. There's Chewbacca in this one.
I see that. He kind of belongs in there, though.
With my Sutter Kane bookmark.
That's awesome. Anyway, continue.
So the crew is like that we meet here is really like
it's like the ragtag crew.
There are archetypes that you would find in this kind of thing. You have like the second in command, Kane, who's very much just kind of. There's more going on with him, but I do call him generic white guy.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what he is.
Kind of like the generic white guy syndrome going on.
You got him. You got kind of the, the newer recruit that's a little green, a little like not quite like a little too stuck with the protocol.
Right.
You got one who's the tech guy that's like really into what he's doing to the point where he's kind of autistic and not really
I definitely pegged him as autistic. As I was reading it, I was like, there's your hyperfocus.
And then you got the asshole who oddly enough that guy actually, even though he was being an asshole, what he's saying I'm like, well, he's not technically wrong,
kind of making some sense.
Like like if he would just calm down, maybe people would listen to him more, but that's not what happens.
No, of course not.
The book is told in a non-linear narrative as well because we keep flashing...
Which I do love.
Because we keep going back and forth between those events and then she's being interrogated by these like kind of men in suits sort of thing. So that's like the Alien comparison there where there's kind of this like corporate like conspiracy behind what's happening. You're not really sure what their intentions are until later on. And then even the supernatural parts are kind of vague until we really find out what the cause of it is.
Right.
Or potential cause of it, because even I will even say that I'd argue that even the presence of the supernatural is kind of vague to me as well.
Okay, I'll be interested to talk about that in the spoiler talk.
Yeah. But
when we get there.
But again, this was another book that I recommended to you because I was like gung-ho to read it.
Yeah. And I've now technically read it 3 times. And I hope that I can still have a good conversation, because even after my second reread, I think I've read like 6 books since then. Mm-hmm. Because we kept having to like put off recording this.
This was a long delayed episode.
It was, because I think that this was supposed to be kind of in line with a new release from S.A. Barnes, and I think that came out like 6 weeks ago at this point.
Yeah, since then, she said Ghost Station, Cold Eternity. I feel like there's a 4th one that I'm blanking on.
That's what I think. There was a new one that came out.
Yeah.
Whenever we were supposed to have this episode out, whenever that was. What was that? May 13th? Editor's note, we were talking about Cold Eternity. It came out April 8th of this year, and this episode was originally slated to air April 13th.
Yeah, which I still need to read those books. I don't know if those are actually like sequels or like set in the same universe.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Or if it's just a case of her going, I just want to write space horror.
Right.
Which is fine. Like, that's right up my alley.
Right.
I definitely, if there's space horror or that kind of sci-fi horror, I'm really into that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works out. Other times it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your face.
Looking at you, this world is not ours.
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah. The best I can say is like, well, it's a short read.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well.
But, so, your first impressions reading this one after I threw it your way, what'd you think?
So, I first read it, probably like a little over a year ago?
Something. I feel like it was like a year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was probably like maybe a year and a half ago.
Whenever it was that we both got back into heavily reading.
Yeah,
stuff.
I think so. Probably like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. There were. I actually want to say I might have read it twice to begin with, because there was definitely a lot of things that I felt like when I finished it, I was like, I don't think I caught everything, because it's definitely one of those books where it just throws lots of things at you, and they're kind of all end up tying in together in like a nice. Like I want to say like a nice little bow, but not exactly. But you know what I mean? Like almost everything that comes up has a purpose.
Yeah.
Things aren't just coming up for no reason.
Yeah. One of the hurdles of reading science fiction or fantasy for me is that they also have to do the extra job of world building.
Yes.
Which can be a challenge for me as a reader, because then that's an extra step that I have to visualize. Because
right.
With a lot of the other things that we've covered, those are grounded in our reality.
Right.
So we have something that we can associate that with.
Right.
Whereas science fiction or fantasy, or even a book that might be about like the ancient world or something like that.
Yeah.
I have to put my imagination to work on that.
Yeah. Well, and that can be a challenge, I think, from a writing standpoint too, because it's that whole balance of, for one thing, show, don't tell, which I think goes really well in this book. And for another thing, not spoon feeding everything. Like you don't have to explain every single little nuance of everything that happens in this world. You can just let people's imaginations kind of take control and just give them the bare bones. These are the important things you need to know about this world, basically. Yeah. And again, I think that's something that this book does really well.
It's definitely easier for me to do with sci-fi than it is with fantasy, personally.
Yeah.
Because
as a reader or a writer, I'm sorry, because I just realized we kind of like switched
a little bit
there.
of both, actually. Because like as a writer, I actually have struggled to write fantasy more than science fiction for the same reasons. Because fantasy, you kind of are creating a whole world that is completely unknown from ours.
Completely from scratch, kind of.
Yeah, whether it's, a Lord of the Rings situation. I don't count Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is it's grounded in our reality.
And also, we don't F with JKR, so.
Nope, we don't. Fuck that bitch.
Right.
But yeah, Tolkien is like that.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin is like that. And
when is he going to finish that last book? Never.
he's actually addressed.
I know
that,
he has.
Where he's like,
stop asking.
He's like, I'm really getting sick of people asking me that. And I'm just like, but
it was
you're
due out like what 15 years ago at this point. I don't even know. That's probably an exaggeration,
dude,
but
the show has been like long done,
right.
and you're just here like just still twiddling your thumbs, going like, I don't know if people still want me to write that or not. I'm like, dude, just do it.
Just finish it. Just finish it. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. So, you're and those kind of have a little bit of marks that you can pinpoint where it's like, okay, well, I know the concept of wizards.
Right.
I know the concept of dragons. I know the concept of, knights.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of an idea there. With Tolkien was a little bit of a jump because, I didn't know what, hobbits were. I had to interpret that.
Hobbits and orcs and all that stuff.
Yeah, because, back when I read The Hobbit, I think I read Hobbit pre-Lord of the Rings movies coming out.
Yeah, no, I definitely did. That's a book that my dad read to me when I was 7 or 8.
Yeah. Now, with science fiction, I have something that's closer to our reality that I can associate that with because it's progression of what already exists.
Right.
Whether it's Blade Runner, whether it's Alien, whether it's Planet of the Apes, or even something as absurd as Flash Gordon, which is kind of like a precursor to... Actually, is it precursor to Star Wars? No, it's post-Star Wars. But I think so. But I have at least some kind of, okay, I know how, X gets to Y here.
Right.
As opposed to, I don't know how to go from X all the way back to F here.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just... I had another one.
Okay.
On your little trek of sci-fi things.
Yeah.
You left out Duck Dodgers. How could you leave out Daffy Duck? That's the best. Duck Dodgers and Marvin the Martian. Best sci-fi, hands down. I'm sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
Sophie's Choice, though. Duck Dodgers or, oh, shoot. Why am I blanking on the name? Let's Get Dangerous.
Oh, yeah. No, Duck Dodgers. For sure. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Or DuckTales.
No.
No? Okay.
No.
But, so going into this, I already am, well aware, okay, my head has to do some of this work. And by this point, I jumped into this having just finished a sci-fi novel before that, because I just read Sea of Rust before that.
Right.
Which is post-apocalyptic robot sci-fi.
Yeah, which you still need to finish reading me that other book.
The prequel to that? Oh, yeah. Which I prefer, more than the main book.
Yeah.
A new one just came out, too.
Oh, dang.
Right. But, so I was primed for this.
Yeah.
And the surreal elements were something that I had been kind of accustomed to just based on me reading horror fiction to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so all I had to do was just put the work of that together.
Yeah.
And so what is left is, do I like the characters or not?
Right.
I think Claire is fascinating.
Yeah.
Especially because it turns out she's an unreliable narrator.
Which, again, I love. I love unreliable narrators. I love when we're getting the story in a non-linear fashion. I love these things. I know they're tropes. They're tropes, but I love them. Yeah,
because it's one of those where it's not simply just the fact that other people are not really trusting her judgment or her recollection of things. She doesn't trust
herself. I know. I love it. Oh,
yeah.
God, I love it.
She doesn't even know if what happened actually happened,
right, or
vice versa, and that it becomes clear what the case is at the end.
Right.
They give you clarity there. Now, like I say, the mechanics of the situation, I think, is personally up for debate. I think you have a different perspective on that. So
perhaps, yeah. So we can talk about that when we get to spoiler territory.
Let's go ahead and jump into it now because we're
so
20 minutes there.
I know we've been right because we keep going off on tangents.
Yeah. So final non-spoilery thoughts on this.
All right. I think if you like sci-fi, pick it up.
Yeah.
If you like anything to do with space, pick it up. Mm-hmm. If you like horror and you've never really delved into sci-fi or space stuff, pick it up.
Yeah.
I definitely think that people who are not comfortable reading, this is not one to start with. Because there's a lot of cerebral stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that's, you got to really, like, think about it and, like, think back to this other thing that already happened in the book to kind of piece things together. So it is definitely a more in-depth read, which is kind of goes against what you were saying earlier. But it is more pulpy and fun. It's not Faulkner. But, but yeah, definitely, it's not...
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would argue that the pulpiness of the scenario is the lead-in to this.
Right.
And it's the thing that gets you in. It's the whole, like, okay, what's this about? Oh, it's about possibly a haunted ship.
Right.
And you're like, okay, so let's go from there. And I think you'll find that even with the simplicity of the way in, it kind of reads like the best kind of B movie that you're not expecting to be actually an A movie, like, disguised as that.
Right.
Very much like Alien is.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you think you're just going to watch one thing, and it still is that thing, but there's so much stuff deeper beneath that. There's a lot of character work here.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of...
it's definitely a character-driven plot.
There's a lot...
Which I'm starting to understand more.
there's a lot of,
A character-driven story.
There's a lot of, analysis on PTSD, on the reliability of memory,
Mm-hmm.
The kind of moral complexity of whether or not to actually, like, throw yourself into a fucked up situation for the right reasons or not.
Right.
Whether or not a corporation is justified in what they do here.
Yeah.
Which 9 times out of 10, they're not.
Right. I'd venture to say 99 times out of 100.
Yeah, I think that's, like, the deeper alien connection there because, the whole...
Right.
The subterfuge with Weyland-Yutani in those movies, which I have to say, rereading this is a very good time because we're in the midst of kind of an Alien resurgence with that franchise because, like, Alien Romulus rocked, and then we got the Alien Earth TV series coming out.
I know. We need to get back to watching because I've only watched, the first 2 movies? 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Predators also come back in a big way.
And those
and they might cross over again.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll jump into the spoilers here, but yeah, I really like this book a lot.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, so spoilers.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So
so talk to me here.
All right. So the revelation of what happens here is that halfway through the book, we find out that the memory that Claire is, like, relaying to the suits is that when they got to the Aurora, her crew murdered themselves in, like, really horrifying ways. They Kermited sewer slide for the most part. At least 3 out of 4 of them did, with Kane still alive there, which is what prompts them to go back. And when they go back, they reveal what happened on there.
Right.
So what they reveal what happened was that there was some internal sabotage that the corporation was trying to do. They had somebody that was on the crew have this device to attach to, I believe it was, like, the core of the ship.
Yeah.
And what it did, it was meant to sabotage that. What ended up happening was that because the ship was made out of kind of a lesser metallic material on the outside, caused these massive vibrations that induced hallucinations, psychosis in the crew that was on board that cruise ship. And in
the patrons.
Yeah, and they all died horribly because of it.
Killing each other,
killing
themselves, whatever.
Yeah. And the thing that when they go to the Aurora the first and second time is that they also have this insinuation that the device is also manifesting ghosts onto the ship.
Right.
So the thing that I find interesting, because I don't feel like the book answers this one way or another.
Okay.
Because you could read it as that this is a device that has somehow broken the barriers of our reality and touched beyond that and manifested the ghosts there. Or you could just look at it as a way of, well, this is still the psychosis-induced hallucinations that of all the other people there that are bringing about their own personal demons on board that ship because Claire is seeing her dead mother.
Okay, yes, but she's also seeing other people's dead people. it's not just her own.
You could argue that this is her associating, the discovery of the people that were on board that ship and going, okay, well, this ghost was possibly related to this person.
What do you mean?
Like, the more that she found out about people that were on board the ship, the more that she could have, kind of been projecting the hallucinations.
I mean, it's possible, but there's a specific one where it's one of the crew that takes her back to the Aurora after Kane has sent out the next, message. And she's one of the soldiers or whatever. And Claire is seeing this woman's, head in command or her dad. I don't remember who it is. But it's somebody who's, disappointed in her. Mm-hmm. She sees this guy before this woman sees him. It makes me feel like, at the very least, even if it's not the mission, because she was seeing them in the hospital, too.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of a Claire thing than it is a ship thing, and maybe the ship brought it out of her, or I'm not sure. But there definitely does seem to be a paranormal aspect to it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, and not just...
It's not defined, but
right.
It doesn't I feel like for the story purposes, it doesn't... The vagueness kind of serves
Yeah, no,
it.
I think it's fine, but I think that there is something... There is some concreteness to the fact that it is real in this sense. There is a supernatural element.
I think the thing that makes me veer towards the fact that it's, that the ghosts are not real is the fact that when they go back for Kane, they find that he, kind of hunkered down in this, soundproofed room so that he's not hearing the vibrations that is being caused through the ship because of the device.
Okay.
And so he's not seeing the hallucinatory elements there until they actually, kind of break through the barrier there.
Right. Well, I mean, but I'm not sure how that disproves that they're there.
I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because, they don't just outright tell you, it's ghosts!
Right.
They give a scientific reason as to why they could be there.
Right.
But it's I think that's a little bit more, it's an easier idea to swallow than, well, maybe not, the simplicity of what they do in Event Horizon, which is the core creates black holes, which are actually wormholes that sent us to hell and back.
Right.
And then the ship came back alive because of that.
Right. I don't know. I feel like they each have their own place. You know?
I love the horror sequences in this, the ghost under the bed.
Oh my god!
Genuinely is a chilling sequence.
You just gave me goosebumps thinking about it.
And I'm not scared of ghosts,
right?
My mom is.
Yeah.
But I personally am not scared of the paranormal, the supernatural, anything like that.
Yeah.
Part of that could be because of atheistic views,
right?
But also. Now, I will say, I am definitely more prone to ghost stories, especially ones like this, where it's kind of more like a Silent Hill situation, where you're not just dealing with the demons, the demons left over of this world. It's also the ones that you bring with you that manifest themselves. I prefer that over, say, something like a demonic possession story or an exorcism story, which is kind of just the same thing over again.
Right.
You get more variety with, doing haunted habitations, specters type of thing. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if there's another movie that does ghosts on a ship. Because Event Horizon is the closest that you would get to that, but even they kind of clarify, well, that's hell manifesting these things. It's not actually
excuse me,
astral beings.
Right.
But this was, this was definitely it was a very welcome surprise.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see this being adapted if people wanted to.
Yeah, I could see it.
Not sure if it'd be a better movie or TV miniseries or something like that.
Yeah, it might. I feel like it might be good to be a miniseries, but also I don't think that there's too much to put in a movie, but it would definitely have to be, I feel longer, on the longer side, 2 to 2.5 hours.
You'd have to have a budget for it, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because, sci-fi's expensive.
Oh, yeah.
But,
all right.
But, yeah, so let's go ahead with ratings on this one, I guess.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go first, since this was one that you suggested? Or?
Sure. Like I said, I love the pulpy setup nature to it. I love that it's very high concept way of drawing me in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just love how much that there's more to deconstruct with this character-wise and thematic-wise. And even just trying to unpack the science of it, there was an interesting debate that we were able to have there.
Right.
Which, we might see different things from that, but, that's what good art does.
Yeah, before you give your rating, actually, that's a good time to say, if you've read the book and you have different ideas about what happened, or if you agree with one or the other of us, let us know in the comments or email us or whatever.
Yeah. This is a 4 out of 5 skull for me here.
Sweet.
I really had a good time with this. I need to check out Barnes's other sci-fi books here.
Yeah. I would say 4 out of 5 for me as well. I don't necessarily know that I could verbalize why it's not good enough to get a 5, but it's just not, it's not like, oh my god, this is the best book I've ever read, I'm gonna tell everybody about it. And though I am an easy rater, as we've talked about, most of my ratings are 3s and 4s. Like,
yeah,
it's, to get a 5, it has to be a very special book, and this is not that. But it is great. And I definitely do think that, if you are interested in it, you should read it. Like, it's good.
I usually reserve my 5s for stuff that kind of go beyond the sum of their parts.
Right.
This is the sum of its parts doing it very well.
Yes. Now, I feel like my 5s are for, like, the ones where people are like, it changed my brain chemistry. Like, those kinds.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
All right.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah, that's Dead Silence.
Yeah.
Again, not the puppet movie.
Oh, my God.
Did you like that?
I don't even remember. I watched it when I had a dog, Bowser, and he was very young, and he got shots, and he was angry. And I watched it while he just, like, sat on a pillow, so I don't remember.
Your boyfriend Donnie Wahlberg in there?
Was he in that?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
It's a James Wan joint, so there's, like, Saw connections.
Dude, I don't remember shit, okay? I don't remember. I know there was, like, weird floating stuff going on. I don't remember.
There's been, like, some kind of, like, weird, like, people trying to have, like, this retroactive history of, like, no, it's actually a masterpiece. And I'm just like, my God, it's really not, guys. Like, there's so many movies that people try to do that with.
Yeah.
Where it's like Ghost Ship, House of Wax, 13 Ghosts, where I'm just like, where people are like, no, this movie's actually amazing. This is the greatest era of horror. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? We all trashed this when it came out. So yeah, that's it for this one. Tune in our next episode where we'll cover Heads Will Roll by Josh Winning.
Yep, probably up in the next couple of days here.
And we're hoping to have another Reels from the Dark Side episode here soon.
Crossing fingers if everything works out right.
Yeah, but should we say what that one's going to be? Or
let it be a surprise.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. So, with that all being said, if you have any suggestions for stuff to read, you can email us at pagesfromthedarkside, all one word, at gmail.com. There is also a P.O. box that will be in the description if you want to send us anything. We love gifts. And
even if it's just a little postcard.
Yep, and I'm back to regularly writing, so you can follow that on mrhyperware.wordpress.com.
Yep.
And also, I am doing TikToks at Mr. Hyperware on TikTok, where I pick out the popular movie of the week, and I do book recommendations based on that movie.
And I'm still not uploading anything on anything, so
you'll get there.
I'll get back to that soon, I hope. But at least we're doing this.
All right.
And
so with that said, we will see you in the next chapter of
Pages from the Dark Side.
This has been a production of Pages from the Dark Side. Sound and video production by Alyssa and Dylan Ludwig. Music and artwork by Aaron Shively.